You are 17 years old when the war finally stops being a distant crackle over the radio and becomes a reality crossing your doorstep. Until then, your life in Bremen is ordinary in all the small, quiet ways that matter. Every morning before sunrise, you wake to help your father open the heavy wooden shutters of his bicycle repair shop. Your hands smell of machine grease long before breakfast. Your mother, Clara, scolds you for wiping your blackened palms on your trousers instead of using a rag. Your younger brother, Anton, trails behind you in the workshop, peppering you with endless questions about every chain, spoke, gear, and broken dynamo. You pretend his presence annoys you, but he knows better. Upstairs, your mother keeps a pot of soup warm over the stove. At the end of each long day, your father sits at the kitchen table, silently reading the newspaper. His name is Friedrich. Having fought in the trenches of the Great War, he returned home with 2 missing fingers and a deep disdain for speeches about national glory. Whenever party officials march through the cobblestone streets carrying banners and beating drums, he quietly pulls the shop door shut until they pass. When you ask him why, he offers only a quiet warning. Men who need that many flags are usually hiding something. You are old enough to grasp that such words are dangerous, yet too young to understand the true depth of that danger. In the classroom, teachers declare that the fatherland has been reborn from humiliation. In youth rallies, boys your age are told that blind obedience is the ultimate strength. You learn patriotic anthems, marching drills, tactical maps, and slogans. You learn to raise your right arm in salute long before you comprehend what refusal might cost your family. Some boys believe every promise. Others merely act the part. Soon, most of you can no longer tell the difference. Your closest friend is Lukas Weber, the sharp-faced son of a local railway clerk. Lukas is wiry, restless, and completely incapable of leaving any mechanical device unopened. Radios fascinate him above all else. With discarded copper wire, a cracked speaker cone, and spare parts scavenged from his father's desk, he can assemble a functioning receiver from scratch. At night, the two of you sneak up to the attic above the repair shop, carefully turning the tuning dial to catch foreign broadcasts through the dense static. Listening to enemy frequencies is strictly forbidden, which only makes every faint voice from London feel startlingly real. Sometimes the BBC reports that German armies are retreating. Sometimes the state broadcast insists total victory is imminent. Lukas chuckles quietly in the dark. One of them has to be lying. Your father, standing at the foot of the attic stairs, quietly answers, "Usually both, son, just not in equal measure." By 1943, the air raids intensify. Howling sirens disrupt family meals. Blackout curtains smother the windows, and entire city blocks vanish overnight beneath rubble and ash. You learn to sleep fully clothed just to reach the air raid shelter in time. One night, a blast wave throws you from your cot and rips the roof off a building 2 doors down. Come morning, you help dig through the smoking debris with your bare hands. A mother wanders the ruined street, screaming her daughter's name over and over. No one answers her. After that, patriotic speeches about clean victory lose whatever power they had left. Then, the draft notice arrives. You have just turned 18. Your mother looks at the official seal, trembling, and sits down at the table before she can bring herself to open it. Your father stands frozen beside the workbench, clutching an adjustable wrench he has forgotten to put down. You are ordered to report for military service. Lukas receives his conscription papers 2 days later. In the beginning, this shared fate feels almost like good fortune. Whatever horror awaits, at least you will not face it alone. Your mother does not share that optimism. She packs tins of food you cannot possibly carry, men's wool socks that the army will instantly replace, and repeats the same frantic questions because there are no comforting answers. On your final evening, your father leads you into the darkened shop after closing time. He does not present you with an heirloom, a medal, or a family token. Instead, he offers advice carved from his own scars. Do not confuse surviving with being right, and never let another man's certainty replace your own conscience. You yearn for simpler words, to keep your head down, to be brave, to come home in one piece. Instead, he leaves you with a moral weight you do not yet understand. On the troop train heading east, Lukas sits across from you with a neat stack of blank paper and envelopes bundled together with twine. His mother made him swear to write home every single week. He insists he will document everything with unflinching honesty. When you remind him that the military censors will black out his words, he smirks and splits the paper into 2 equal piles. Simple, he says. One version for the army inspectors, and one version for the truth. Basic training in northern Germany is a relentless blur of shaved heads, shouting non-commissioned officers, inspections, collective punishments, and brutal drills designed to strip away individuality. Your rifle becomes an extension of your body, carried even when eating or sleeping. You learn to prime stick grenades, dig entrenchments, identify enemy aircraft, and obey commands without thinking. Because of his innate technical skill, Lukas is assigned as a radio operator. He takes pride in the posting for exactly 1 day, until a veteran soldier informs him that radiomen attract bullets because commanders depend on them. Your platoon leader is Sergeant Hans Brenner, 31 years old, broad-shouldered, and hollowed out by exhaustion. Having survived campaigns in Poland, France, and Russia, he never speaks of those fronts unless prompted by an ignorant recruit. When a green soldier asks how many men he has killed, Brenner looks at him with dead eyes, enough to know that counting won't save your soul. Brenner treats the platoon harshly, but never with cruelty. He forces you to dig deeper slit trenches, lug extra ammunition boxes, and repeat drills long after other squads stop. At first, you assume he enjoys the authority. Only later do you realize he is desperately using the only tools he has to keep young boys alive. In early 1944, your regiment is transferred to Normandy. The French countryside catches you off guard with its quiet beauty. Emerald pastures, ancient stone farmhouses, blooming orchards, and sleepy hamlets. That look untouched until you notice the German road signs, machine gun checkpoints, and soldiers billeted in barns and schools. The local civilians watch your movements with guarded, unreadable expressions. Some look straight through you, others stare with cold contempt. Your outpost is situated several miles inland, linked to coastal strongpoints by field telephones and radio relays. Officers constantly lecture you on the impregnability of the Atlantic Wall, boasting of deep concrete bunkers, minefields, coastal artillery, and underwater obstacles that will crush any Allied landing in the surf. Sergeant Brenner listens quietly, then asks where the promised air support is. The officers offer no reply. For months, you dig communications trenches, reinforce firing pits, and carry heavy ammunition crates until your shoulders are raw and bruised. Lukas spends his days troubleshooting failing radio equipment with salvage parts that should have been decommissioned months earlier. At night, your squad sleeps in a requisitioned stone farmhouse. The owners, the Dubois family, have been confined to 2 cramped back rooms. Monsieur Dubois rarely meets your eye. His daughter, Juliette, who is roughly your age, glares at your gray uniform as if it were filth you chose to wear. One evening, a letter from your brother Anton slips from your uniform pocket onto the flagstone floor. Juliette picks it up before you can react. She cannot read the German handwriting, but her eyes linger on the crude drawing at the bottom. 2 stick figures riding bicycles under a crooked sun. Her icy demeanor softens for a fraction of a second before she hands the page back in silence and walks away. Lukas witnesses the exchange from his radio bench. "Congratulations," he whispers with a faint grin. "A French girl has decided you might actually be human." "Shut up, Lukas," you mutter. Yet the small warmth of that moment lingers in your chest. The weeks dissolve into a monotony of labor, tension, and wild rumors. The Allies will strike at the Pas de Calais. No, Normandy. No, Norway. The invasion is coming tomorrow. The invasion will never come. Germany will deploy secret wonder weapons. Germany has run out of fuel. Through it all, Lukas dutifully writes 2 distinct accounts of each week. The official letters speak of adequate rations, firm discipline, and high morale. The real letters describe overwhelming fatigue, skies dominated by Allied aircraft, and the quiet certainty that the Atlantic Wall is a hollow shell. He never posts the honest accounts. Instead, he carefully seals them, addresses each envelope to his mother in Bremen, and tucks them inside a canvas pouch beneath the heavy radio batteries. "Why write them at all if you can't send them?" you ask him one evening. "Because if everything falls apart," he answers quietly, "someone ought to know what I actually thought." On the evening of June 5, 1944, a torrential storm batters the coastline. Regimental officers declare that the rough seas make an amphibious assault impossible. Sergeant Brenner does not believe them. He orders every man to sleep fully uniformed, with weapons loaded. Shortly after midnight, the drone of airplane engines fills the night sky. Not a few dozen, but hundreds upon hundreds. The very atmosphere vibrates with a low, mechanical hum. Scattered reports flood the radio. Allied paratroopers dropping inland, severed telephone wires, and fierce firefights near bridges. Contradictory messages pour in faster than they can be logged. Lukas crouches over his radio set, earphones clamped against his head, desperately trying to filter raw panic from actual orders. Before dawn, the naval bombardment erupts. What begins as a distant rumble soon turns into an earth-shaking roar. The windows of the farmhouse shatter, plaster falls from the ceiling like hail. You sprint toward your prepared positions carrying ammunition cans while the western horizon flashes with continuous artillery light. From an elevated ridge, you catch your first glimpse of the English Channel. The sea is completely covered in steel. The sheer scale of the Allied Armada instantly shatters every piece of propaganda you were ever fed. There are simply too many ships, battleships, destroyers, transports, and endless lines of landing craft churning through the surf toward the beaches. Brenner lowers his field glasses, his voice hollow. The wall was never built to stop that. It was built to make fools believe it could. Your unit receives urgent orders to advance toward the coast, to reinforce positions under attack. Moving along sunken lanes and dense hedgerows, you find yourself completely exposed to Allied aircraft circling overhead. Every open field feels like an impossible barrier. A fighter dives out of the clouds, spraying the road with cannon fire. Men dive into ditches as the earth erupts around them. A supply horse collapses in its harness. A transport truck bursts into flames. A terrified young soldier beside you screams repeatedly that his arm is gone, even as his blood-stained hands remain clamped around his rifle. By the time you reach the defensive line, your platoon has suffered casualties without ever seeing an Allied infantryman. The coast is a chaotic nightmare of black smoke, deafening noise, and total confusion. Bunkers stand isolated with severed communications. Ammunition arrives at the wrong sectors. Wounded men stumble inland while disorganized reinforcements are pushed toward the beach. Lukas sets up his radio beside a damaged concrete bunker. You and Sergeant Brenner take up firing positions in a shallow trench overlooking a narrow approach between thick hedges. American soldiers emerge from the smoke, not in mass charges, but in small, cautious groups, utilizing smoke and the folds in the ground for cover. "Fire!" Brenner barks. You pull the trigger. A silhouette collapses into the grass. Another soldier drags the fallen man behind a berm. You had always imagined that taking a human life would feel like a monumental event. In reality, it feels distant and mechanical. A shape standing, then suddenly not standing. Your hands work through muscle memory alone. Load, aim, fire, move. The hours blur into a formless nightmare. Artillery shells fall in such relentless waves that brief pauses in the barrage feel unnatural. Over the radio, Lukas receives fractured, conflicting commands. Hold the position. Withdraw. Counterattack. Wait for armor. No armor is coming. Request support. Support unavailable. Brenner chooses the only order that seems real. Survive until nightfall. By late afternoon, American mortar rounds begin walking toward your trench. The first round impacts behind you. The second lands closer, showering you with dirt. Disperse! Spread out! Brenner screams. Lukas refuses to leave his post, struggling to transcribe an incoming transmission. The third mortar shell detonates directly beside the bunker entrance. You regain consciousness with dry dirt in your mouth and a deafening ringing in your ears. Part of the trench wall has collapsed inward. Brenner is frantically dragging a dazed soldier from the debris. You scramble through the dust toward Lukas. The radio is destroyed. Lukas is slumped against the cracked wall, conscious but pale as chalk, his hands pressed against a severe shrapnel wound in his abdomen. You crawl to his side. His eyes reflect not terror, but a deep, bewildered sorrow. "The pouch," he whispers, coughing weakly. Thinking he wants medical supplies, you reach for your kit, but he feebly points beneath the broken batteries. The canvas pouch containing his real letters is still intact. You pull it free. "My mother," he breathes, his fingers tightening weakly on your sleeve. "Not the army ones. Promise me you won't give her the lies." "Hold on, Lukas," you tell him, your voice cracking. "You're going to give them to her yourself." Brenner drops down beside you and checks the wound. The grim set of his jaw tells you everything. "Allied fire is getting closer," Brenner says flatly. "The position must be abandoned." You try to lift Lukas, but a scream of agony tears from his throat. "You cannot carry him through the hedgerows under shell fire," Brenner says. "Grabbing your uniform. He won't make it." "I'm staying with him," you shout. Brenner pulls you close until his dirt-streaked face is inches from yours. Then his letters die here too. The cruelty of the truth hits like a blow. Lukas hears it. With the last of his strength, he presses the canvas pouch firmly against your chest. "Go," he whispers. He does not say it like a hero in a propaganda film. He says it like an ordinary boy asking a friend to finish a simple task. You leave him behind in the shelter of the damaged bunker, with a canteen of water, a loaded pistol, and an empty promise that the field medics will come. As you retreat through the smoking hedgerows, you strain your ears, waiting for the sound of a single pistol shot behind you. But there are too many gunshots to ever know if one belonged to Lukas. The surviving remnants of your unit stumble inland through fields littered with smoke and abandoned gear. Nobody knows where the next defensive line begins. Near sunset, Sergeant Brenner leads the 6 remaining men into an apple orchard. An American patrol finds you. In the brief exchange of fire, Brenner is hit in the chest. He remains standing just long enough to order everyone to stop shooting, then lowers his weapon and collapses heavily beside a tree. You raise your hands. The American soldiers search you quickly. One soldier takes your ammunition, another finds Lukas's canvas pouch and casts it into the dirt. Panic overtaking fear, you move toward it without thinking. An American infantryman immediately levels his rifle at your chest. In broken, trembling English, you manage 2 words. Letters, "Mother." The soldier looks from the envelopes to your terrified face. Without a word, he picks up the canvas pouch and pushes it back against your chest. You are marched toward the coast alongside hundreds of other prisoners. Along the roads, the invasion no longer looks uncertain. Endless columns of supply trucks, Sherman tanks, combat engineers, ammunition, and thousands of fresh infantry move inland. The defensive wall you spent months building is already behind them. Near the beach, you see German prisoners sitting quietly alongside wounded Americans. Medical personnel treat both sides without stopping to ask which flag they served. For the first time that day, the enemy looks less like a monstrous army and more like a collection of exhausted young men covered in the exact same dirt. You search every group of prisoners for Lukas's face. You never find him. You are transferred first to England, then shipped across the Atlantic to a prisoner of war camp in the United States. Months pass behind wire. You work on rural farms, repair machinery, and receive food more regularly than many civilians back in Germany. The comfort feels unearned, almost wrong. Some prisoners remain loyal to the regime, calling every report of retreat enemy propaganda. Others grow increasingly silent as Germany collapses into ruin. Throughout it all, you keep Lukas's pouch hidden beneath your mattress. There are 23 letters in total. You read none of them. They are addressed to Frau Elisabeth Weber in Bremen. You repeat the street address in your head every night until you could say it unconscious. In 1945, newspapers arrive in the camp showing liberated concentration camps. Mountains of corpses, starvation, and survivors staring hollowly into cameras. Guards and prisoners argue over whether the photographs are real. You recognize that old instinct immediately, the desperate urge to find a version of reality that requires nothing from you. You remember your father's warning never to let another man's certainty replace your own conscience. You remember the uniforms, the banners, and the speeches. You did not design the camps. You did not know their full reality. But you wore the uniform of the state that built them, defended its territory, and accepted its explanations whenever asking questions felt dangerous. That knowledge does not make you the same as the men who committed the crimes. But it also does not allow you to pretend you were untouched by the system that made them possible. The war ends, but you are not sent home immediately. When you finally return to Bremen in 1946, the city is broken. Your childhood street exists, but half the buildings do not. The bicycle shop stands without a roof. At the threshold, your mother, Clara, meets you with hollow eyes. She delivers the news standing in the doorway because there is no gentle place left for the truth. Your father survived the initial bombings, only to die during a later raid while helping neighbors escape a collapsing cellar. Your brother Anton is taller now, but he no longer asks endless questions. He repairs bicycle frames in silence, simply because someone has to earn bread. Your mother touches your face and whispers that you look much older. You remember Anton's childhood drawing and think of that French farmhouse. A memory from an innocent life that was never truly yours. There is no perfect future preserved for your return. There is only hard labor, hunger, rubble, silence, and Lukas's letters. Lukas's mother lives across the city in a damaged apartment above a bakery. You find the address during your first week home, but you avoid it. Every morning you place the canvas pouch inside your coat. Every evening you return without delivering it. You invent excuses. She may have moved. She may already know. The harsh truth may hurt her. But the reality is far simpler. You are afraid she will ask how her son died. You are afraid to say you left him behind in the dirt. Weeks turn into months. You repair wheels, rebuild frames, and help Anton reopen part of the shop. Yet at night, the artillery shells return in your dreams. You wake up hearing Lukas say, "Not the army ones." One evening, your mother notices the worn pouch and asks what it contains. "Something I was supposed to deliver long ago." She looks at you with quiet understanding. Then every day you keep it here, you are choosing not to. The next morning, you walk across Bremen and climb the stairs above the bakery. Frau Weber opens the door herself. She is smaller and more fragile than you remembered, her hair turned entirely silver. Behind her, a framed photograph of Lukas stands on a shelf, beside the radio receiver he built as a boy. She recognizes your name before you speak. Lukas had mentioned you often in the official letters that reached home. She invites you inside and asks the question you feared most. Did my Lukas suffer? You could offer the safe, comforting lie. No, it was quick. He spoke of you. He died bravely. Instead, you reach into your coat and place the canvas pouch on the wooden table. "He wrote these," you say quietly. "The real ones." Her hands shake as she touches the weathered cloth. Then she looks up, her eyes searching yours. "Were you with him?" "Yes." "Did you leave him?" The room becomes completely still. "Yes," you answer. Without offering excuses, you tell her everything. The shelling, the destroyed radio, the retreat, Brenner's order, and Lukas's final request. You do not ask for forgiveness, knowing that the explanation already sounds too much like a plea for it. Frau Weber opens the first envelope, her fingers tracing the ink, but she does not read it immediately. "He trusted you to bring these home," she says softly. "I waited too long," you reply. She looks at the pouch, then back at you. "Yet you brought them." It is neither forgiveness nor condemnation. It is simply the truth. She asks you to stay while she reads the first letter. Lukas wrote about Normandy, the stone farmhouse, the failing radio equipment, and how frightened he was that the war would end before anyone admitted it had been lost long ago. Halfway through the page, his mother begins crying. You remain seated, knowing that leaving the room would only repeat the act of walking away. After that day, you visit her occasionally. You repair Lukas's childhood radio, though there is little worth listening to on the airwaves. Frau Weber gives you one of his old sketches, the Bremen railway station drawn from memory. You hang it inside the bicycle shop above the workbench. Years pass. Germany rebuilds itself around ruins that never disappear completely. Anton becomes your business partner. Your mother grows old and passes away in peace. You marry eventually. Not a childhood sweetheart preserved unchanged, but a nurse named Emma, whom you meet while repairing bicycles for the local hospital. She knows you were a soldier, but she never asks for stories you cannot bear to tell. Together, you have a daughter. When she is old enough to ask what you did during the war, you do not tell her that you were only following orders. You tell her that ordinary people can be frightened, manipulated, and still responsible for the moments when they choose not to look. You tell her about Lukas long before you tell her about yourself. You keep no heroic objects from the war, no medals, and no military gear locked in a drawer. What remains is the drawing above the workbench, and one empty canvas pouch returned by Lukas's mother after she finished reading every letter. Decades later, after she passes away, you find a short note she placed inside the pouch. He came home in his own words. That was the true cargo you carried across the years. You are 72 years old when a young customer enters the shop with a broken bicycle radio strapped to the handlebars. It is cheap, plastic, and barely worth the labor. Your daughter suggests throwing it away. Instead, you gently open the casing and begin untangling the wires. The smell of solder, dust, and heated metal pulls you back half a century, to the farmhouse in Normandy, to Lukas hunched over glowing vacuum tubes, promising two versions of every letter, the official lie and the raw truth. You repair the connection and turn the dial. Static fills the workshop, followed by a clear, gentle melody. Outside the window, modern Bremen moves around you. Streetcars hum, children laugh on the sidewalks, and ordinary life continues over ground that once burned to the bedrock. You look up at Lukas's drawing above the bench. For decades, you believed your promise was only to deliver a bundle of letters. In truth, it was much larger than that. The promise was to refuse the easier version of history. It was having the courage to tell a mother that you left her son behind. It was telling your daughter that a uniform does not make a man innocent or guilty on its own, but that your choices always belong to you. It was remembering the victims of a regime that tried to erase them and rebuilding a life without pretending that reconstruction washes away what came before. Your father told you not to confuse surviving with being right. Lukas begged you not to deliver the lies. It took most of your life to understand that both men were asking for the exact same thing. The radio continues to play. You place the empty pouch beneath the sketch, lock the shop doors for the evening, and step outside into the cool air. There is no battlefield waiting for you in the dark. No officer shouting commands. No promised return to the innocent boy you used to be. There is only the difficult life that came after, and the truth you finally chose to carry. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful journeys.